How's it going, guys? Miguel here from CFS Recovery. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to build your baseline. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is Miguel, fully recovered after battling CFS for about 4.5, almost 5 years. And at my worst, I was completely bedridden. I was actually in the hospital for a few months because I was just struggling really bad. They had to blend my food. It's not a good scene, but today I have my life back. It's been a crazy, crazy journey. And today I help people all around the world recover from CFS so they can have thriving health. Now, as I said, this video is about building your baseline and how to build your baseline. Now, if you haven't already watched this video up here, which is the best way to expand activity, make sure you watch that because that video is going to help you understand everything I talk about in this video. That is kind of the part one. This is more so the part two of that video. So if you watch that first, then everything will make perfect sense in this video. Now, if you already have watched that, or you're gonna go and watch it in the future, let's jump right into it. How to build your baseline. Now, one thing you'll learn about this channel is I'm always full of analogies. So in this analogy, I want you to think of building a building, right? Because we are trying to build you back up. We're trying to build up your lifestyle, your activity levels, not just physically, but cognitively, emotionally, so that way you can handle life, right? So if we have two buildings here, let's look at a one-story building, very small, one room. It's almost like something you pop in your backyard, not too functional. And then on the right here, we have a beautiful, magnificent building, right? That represents the ultimate life. That represents thriving health. You have tons of different options, tons of different capabilities. That's when you know you've built your life back up to that level you want to be at, if not further than the life you've built before. And it's totally possible to do that. But, of these two, which one would you want to be? Because I know myself, I'd rather be the Burj Khalifa in Dubai and be an amazing, beautiful building versus being a shed that someone just pops in their backyard, right? Obviously, you want to have a life with many options and something that's exciting, right? There's a reason I broke down this analogy into buildings. If we look at a building, first you have to lay the foundation, and most people forget to do this part, and this is why everything comes crashing down over time if they don't do this properly. But the foundation is mindset. As cliche as it sounds, you need to have your mindset in point in order to make lasting progress. Now, once you have that foundation in place, then you can build upon that foundation. If you don't have it in place, everything is going to crumble at some point. Your progress will be unreliable, unpredictable. Maybe you've recovered a few times in the past, but you kind of did it through luck and you're not really sure exactly how you got better. So I'm going to show you how it's done. So let's say these are the different floors. You see these lines over here? Each floor would represent a progress cycle, right? And every 9 or 10 floors, you can see it's a bit thicker. And that's kind of like reinforcements for a building. You could see the thick floor over here, and these are the smaller floors, right? So let's say you build yourself up, and let's say you're starting from ground zero, right? You build yourself up through a handful of progress cycles. Progress cycle is essentially, I have other videos about it. You can watch it up here. But essentially when you increase activity or increase stimulus, your symptoms flare up, and then you pull back, let your body adjust to it, give it time to recalibrate itself, and then you reach a new high after that. But let's say you go through about 9 or 10 of those, right? And you're starting from complete zero, bedridden. Well, after a while, you'll be able to function at home. Let's say that's the first level, right? Now, the reason there is a thicker layer over here is because in a building, you need some reinforcements. Because what happens if one floor falls? Is it going to take down everything below it? No, you want some reinforcements. Now, I'm no architect. I've never built a building before, so let's just assume that's the case. It would make logical sense that they reinforce the building every so floors. Maybe it's every floor, right? But for this example, let's say every 9 or 10 floors, they reinforce it. So that's kind of like when we're coasting in recovery. You don't want to always be flaring up symptoms and going in and out of adjustment periods. You want some time to, enjoy yourself and not be completely flaring up with symptoms. So if we work your way up to this point where you're functioning at home, well, the next level would be functioning at home with minimal symptoms. And as we move forward in recovery, you are building upon your progress cycles. And then you want to reinforce that floor again, as you can see over here, just like that. Once you've built yourself up to that point, the next level would be, functioning outside of the house with minimal symptoms. You're slowly piecing your life back together. Then you're traveling, living a functional life with minimal symptoms. And then maybe you start working part-time, right? And you're building these layers. Then you start working full-time. And then you're exercising, you're traveling, you're truly living a full life again, right? Now, here's the thing that people miss most of the time. Like I said, at the bottom here, the foundation, the whole foundation, the most important part is the mindset. So it's really important that we don't just focus on the physical actions, how much activity we're doing, how much walking, how much exercise, how much sleep. Those are all physical things, right? Paying attention to only the physical things is kind of like trying to build a building, but only paying attention to the pillars and concrete walls and floors and things like that. What are we missing in that building? We're missing a very, very crucial point here. And that crucial point is what's holding all of this together. What are holding the big pieces, the big chunks together? The bolts and the screws and the welding. Emotions are like the welding and bolts that hold the building together. And most people don't look at, how much are they fearing the symptoms? How much are they anticipating the symptoms that they think will come up? Or how much are they regretting doing the activity and telling themselves, I shouldn't have done that, or fingers crossed, I hope I don't crash from that. How often is that happening? And when you don't really understand what's going on, you're not really paying attention to your emotions. You're just feeling a lot of fear and anxiety and worry. But as it says here, emotions are like the welding and bolts that hold the building together. This is one of the most important parts. I mean, everything is important, but people miss these small little things. But what happens is when you neglect your emotions, as in you don't address them, and you go for your walk, you're increasing it by 1 minute every week, because a lot of people do that because they think that's the right way to go. Well, they're not really addressing the emotions around every time they feel symptoms. Every time they feel symptoms, it's fear and worry and doubt and anticipation, all of those things, all of those negative emotions. Now, it doesn't matter how slow you progress physically. It doesn't matter if you add on 30 seconds each week or 2 minutes each week. If your emotions are not in check, that building will come crashing down anytime. Would you ever build a building without any of these bolts or any of these welds or anything like that? No, you would never, right? Because then it would just fall apart. Well, it's the same thing as you build up your baseline. You need to stay on top of your emotions and keep your emotions in check. You can't let it, run wild, especially with negative emotions, because the moment you start doing that, you're going to start taking layers off of your capabilities. And we've seen it with people in the program that we have, Recovery Jumpstart. I've seen it with myself. The moment I start getting stressed, and let's say I'm stressed out for a few days or even a week, my capacity for activity will go down, even though nothing changed physically, right? It was all emotions, but the welding comes loose, even though obviously that's not possible with buildings, but let's say the bolts start to come loose. That's when things start to collapse. Now, remember what we said here. We have these reinforced levels. So it's not like you're gonna come sliding all the way down here if you mess up a few times and you kind of lose your cool, but you will fall to the previous level, or you will likely fall to the previous level, right? So this is kind of what it looks like. Next thing you know, you're only able to work part-time. Next thing you know, things are starting to spiral and you're able to not work. You're not able to work, but you're able to live somewhat of a functional life. Then you're able to function a bit less. And then you have to pull it back to being at home. And then you can only barely function at home. And next thing you know, you're back to the foundation, but the foundation kind of crumbled at the end of the day, right? So every handful of progress cycles, like I said, you want to reinforce that new level of activity by maintaining for a while. Now, for a while, it's subjective. You could maintain for a week, a month, 2 months. You don't always have to be going in and out of adjustment periods and kind of training yourself. If we were to compare it to a gym, that's like constantly working out, but never taking a day off. So you want to have these reinforcement levels, right? This is where you want to coast a little bit. And I know it's pretty tricky to kind of go through this by yourself. This is exactly what we help people with in the Recovery Jumpstart program, because everybody's situation is a little bit unique. For someone, this reinforcement level or what gets them to here is different for another person, right? The same level of activity that gets someone to here and the same approach could get someone else to here, right? So it's very specific. I know it can feel a little bit confusing, but in general, this is what you want to do. So people ask, okay, how often should I be flaring up symptoms and then pulling back, right? And it really depends. Are you just starting over here? Are you up here and you have a lot of experience with this and it's not your first rodeo, it's not your first flare up or adjustment period, and you've been following my content for a while, you've been making progress, or are you brand new? So it really, really depends. If you were really curious of where you're at, I would definitely check out the Recovery Jumpstart program. You can see everything that we do there. Just click the link down below. You'll be able to see exactly how we help people go through this process. There's a lot of one-on-one help as well, because we do build a customized plan for you. But in general, this is how we want it to look. Imagine we're building a building, right? We're building a beautiful building, and that building in recovery is your life. You are rebuilding your life, right? Level by level, floor by floor. In recovery, you're adding on different kind of capabilities, right? So maybe if you start bedridden, well, now you're able to get up and take a shower every day, right? Whereas before you could shower once every few weeks or once a week, right? Or depending on where you're at, maybe you could shower a little bit more, but you add in the showers. Now you add in, okay, doing some chores around the house. Now you add in, now you're able to leave the house and actually sit outside or go for car rides. Now you're able to cook by yourself. And we're just layering these things on top of each other. Imagine it like you're building a beautiful tower from the ground up. And I think that's what's so cool about going through something like CFS. Obviously, once you make it to the other side and learn about this information and you're able to apply it, it's kind of like building a custom built house. Maybe not even a house, but a custom built character. You really kind of start from a blank slate, right? Because in order to recover from CFS, you do have to change a lot of your personality traits. A lot of people, what makes them fall into this illness is because they were overthinkers or type A personalities or perfectionists. They could never really slow their mind down. So really, if that's the mindset and the person that you were that caused you to go into this, with those same personality traits, it's impossible to get out. So you do have to tweak a few things. Now, you don't have to completely reinvent yourself, but let's just call it it's almost like if you were to rebuild a building or renovate it or tear it down and build it from the ground up. In recovery, it's kind of like our life was torn down to pieces, basically, and we have to pour concrete again, lay a new foundation, start with a mindset, and then layer things on top of each other and rebuild our life kind of brick by brick. And it's something we actually talk about in the program in one of the weeks is, hey, this is the new starting point. Rome wasn't built in a day, but once it was built, it was beautiful, right? And great things take time. So you do have the power to reinvent your life and kind of start from scratch, right? Not a lot of people in life get to start from scratch. So yes, while it is extremely painful, it's probably the hardest thing you'll ever go through. What you get on the other side of that is so much more, but that only happens when you get through it. So these reinforcement floors, you can see I highlighted them green here, just so they stand out. Every now and then you want to coast a little bit in recovery. Like I said, it's hard to say exactly when you need to coast. It really depends on how well you handle the symptoms and how fast you're progressing and where you even started. But again, that's something we help people with in the program. But like I said, emotions are like the welding and bolts that hold the building together. Don't forget that, right? They're small. You can't really see them all the time. They're not as obvious, but they are so important in putting all of the pieces together. So make sure to stay on top of your emotions or at least be aware of them, right? That's something I tell everybody is, hey, how anxious are you about your symptoms? Are you anticipating that you're going to flare up if you do certain activities based on previous experience? And most of the time it's yes, because all the times they've tried in the past, yes, they have flared up. But a lot of times, even when we're not doing the activity, that fear and that experience of replaying those symptom flare-ups and how bad that activity was and replaying it in our head, that actually keeps us stuck in the cycle. Because even though you're not physically doing it, your brain is on repeat and it's experiencing it over and over again. And it's reinforcing that that activity is bad, this activity is bad, and you become terrified to do them. And that's how your world starts to get smaller and shrink. That's kind of how you fall into the downward spiral. And it's not your fault. I've been there. Pretty much everybody with CFS has been there. That's kind of what it is. Your brain goes into survival mode and it avoids doing a lot of things, and it gives you symptoms when you try to do those things. So the emotions are extremely important to pay attention to. But I hope that makes sense. Think about where you are at right now. Think of yourself as the master architect, the designer, and the builder of this new life that you're about to create, right? It may feel like you lost everything, or most things. It may feel like your life went completely off the rails. You're watching other people kind of pass you by, and especially friends and family, they're moving on in their careers and their friendships and going on vacations, while we have to fight every single day just to get through the day because it's so tough to get by with these symptoms. You're at a place right now where you have the power to reinvent your life, to reinvent who you are. Think of yourself as the master architect, as the master carpenter, as the master designer of your life. And one of the other exercises we get people to do is, how do you want that building to look? In other words, how do you want your life to look? Because when's the last time you thought about what it would be like to live an amazing life, to truly recover and achieve that goal of thriving health? What does that look like? Crystal clear, every single detail, what does that look like? And I guarantee you, the more you focus on that, the easier it is going to be to apply pretty much everything I teach on this channel, because you're gonna have that motivation and that drive to stick with this even when the times get tough, even when there's crazy symptoms and you're flaring up and it feels like you have a setback or a crash. Really, the vision is what is gonna save you, right? That vision for what that building will look like. In this case, what that life will look like. So you have the power to do that, right? We have just how to build it up piece by piece. Again, Rome was not built in a day. And just like Rome wasn't built in a day, your life will not be built back in one day. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot of value out of it, and I hope this analogy makes a lot of sense for you. If you did find value out of this video, just comment down below your biggest takeaway. And if you did want some extra help navigating your recovery, because I know it can be a little bit confusing and you just needed a way to get unstuck, a way to jumpstart your recovery. It's exactly why I've created the Recovery Jumpstart program. It's a program that's very interactive. You're able to work in a small group setting and learn from others who are a few steps ahead of you, at the same level as you, or a few steps behind. But the biggest thing is you get to work directly with a Thriver success coach. And this is somebody who has had CFS, been through it, been through the trenches. And our coaches have been hospitalized. Our coaches have been completely bedridden at some points, and now they live a life with thriving health. So they're able to walk you through step by step, give you customized plan, look at your situation and figure out, okay, what's the next best steps? And so much easier to do this with a team versus doing this on your own. If you were interested in that, click the link down below. You can learn more information about the program, and you can fill out a questionnaire. And if you do qualify, then you can hop on a call with one of our senior team members and we can see if we can help you. But as always, you are a thriver, and always remember that you are just one mind shift away from living a life with thriving health. I'll see you in the next video.